Every door in Frostmere was locked against him. The stranger came in off the road on the coldest night of the year. Frost in his dark hair, a limp, a hunger in his face that made people cross the street. "Beggar," they whispered. And a starving town has no bread to waste on beggars. Nell had exactly one piece of bread left in the world. She gave him all of it. She had no idea what she'd done. Because the freezing man in the beggar's cloak wasn't a beggar at all. He was the Alpha King of Veyra, walking his own kingdom in disguise to find out why his people were starving. And in 30 years on the throne, no one had ever once been kind to him when they thought he had nothing to give. Until her. She thought she was feeding a stranger. She never knew she'd just fed a king. Or that from that night on, that king would burn his whole kingdom down before he'd let her go. Episode 1. The knock came after dark, and nobody in Frostmere knocked after dark anymore. "We're closed," Nell called. The knock came again, weaker, and then a voice, half frozen, through the door. "Please." Just that. One word. She knew that sound. She'd made it once herself, a long time ago, on a night just as cold. She opened the door. A man all but fell across her threshold. Tall, soaped through, frost in his hair, and eyes, when they lifted to hers, of the strangest deep gold she'd ever seen. "Every door in this town turned me away," he rasped. "I just need somewhere out of the wind. A corner. I'll be gone by morning." Nell looked at him. Then she looked at the one small loaf in her hands. Her breakfast, her supper, quite possibly her only food for a week. She tore it in half. Then she looked at his face again. And she didn't give him half. She gave him all of it. "Eat," she said, pressing the whole warm loaf into his frozen hands. "Slowly, mind, or you'll be sick." The man stared down at the bread like she'd handed him something impossible. "This is all you have," he said. It wasn't a question. "You'd give it to a stranger. You don't even know my name." "You looked cold," Nell said, turning to the fire so she didn't have to hold that gold gaze. "Somebody fed me once when I had nothing, and they didn't have to. I've been paying it back ever since. It's just bread. It's not a marriage proposal." And then their fingers brushed, and something turned over deep behind her ribs. A warmth, a pull. For one impossible heartbeat, she felt a second pulse that wasn't hers. Strong, racing. She snatched her hand back. "Did you feel that?" The man had gone very still. He was staring at her like the world had tilted. "No," he said. His voice had gone rough. "Feel what?" He was lying. She could see it plain on his face. "Blankets in the chest. Floor by the oven's the warm spot," she said. "By morning you'll be gone, and this'll all have been a strange dream." She climbed to her loft, heart hammering, that warmth still glowing stubborn under her ribs. And below her, in the dark, she heard the stranger eat the bread, slow and careful. The way a man eats when he's learned not to trust there'll be more. And then, so quiet she almost missed it, she heard him say to the dark, 12 years I've been looking for you. And you were out here, giving away your last piece of bread." Nell didn't understand what he meant. She had no idea she'd just fed a king. She only knew her hand still burned where his had touched it, and that in the morning, everything was going to change. Episode 2. He was still there at dawn, fire rebuilt, floor swept, standing at her cracked window like a man taking the measure of the whole town. "You said by morning," Nell said. "I did." He turned. "My name is Ronan. You gave me the last of your food in a town where every other door was locked. I'd like to know why." "Because Frostmere's afraid," Nell said, tipping her empty flour sack over the bowl. Nothing came out. "There's a boot on this town's neck, and frightened people get hard." "Whose boot?" "Lord Crale's, the king's own steward." Her mouth twisted. "The crown sends grain for the border towns every winter. Somehow it never leaves Crale's storehouses. He sits on full granaries behind armed doors, and we starve. And if you ask why, your rent doubles. Or your shop burns. The king's too far away to know. He's probably never even heard our town's name." Something flickered across Ronan's face. Something like guilt. "You think the king doesn't know?" "I think if he knew a town of his was starving so his own steward could grow fat, he'd have to be a monster not to act." She shrugged. "So either he doesn't know, or he's a monster. I try not to assume the worst of people I've never met. Even kings." He looked at her for a long moment, and there was something working behind those gold eyes she couldn't read. "Let me work," he said suddenly. "You fed me when you had nothing. That doesn't sit right on a man. Your window's cracked, your flue's blocked, you've no flour. Let me fix 3 of those." His mouth curved. "The 4th? I have a feeling I can help with 2. Nell should have said no. A wise woman would have. But her hand still burned where he'd touched it, and she was so tired of the cold. "A few days," she said. "And the second you make me regret this, you're back on the road." That night she woke to the soft click of the door. Through the cracked window she watched a tall figure move through the snow toward Crale's granaries, where no one went, and everyone was afraid. And as he passed under a hanging lantern, she saw his eyes catch the light and flare. Gold. Burning gold in the dark. "What are you, Ronan?" she breathed. But he was already gone, swallowed by the snow. She had no idea the ragged man she'd taken in was standing in the shadow of the granaries right now, counting the guards, reading the locks, learning exactly how badly he'd been betrayed. Episode 3. The strange thing was how fast the stranger stopped feeling like one. He fixed the window, cleared the flue, came home the second day with a sack of good flour, and flatly refused to say where he'd got it. And in the evenings, by the fire, they talked. And gods, could they talk! He was dry and sharp, and said the most cutting things with a straight face until she was laughing before she'd decided to. "You're the most secretive man I've ever met," Nell said, kneading dough. "For all I know, you're a bandit, or a spy, or a prince." Ronan sharpened her dull knife by the fire, not looking up. "Would it change how you treat me if I were a prince?" "Course it would. I'd make you sleep outside. Princes are nothing but trouble." She flicked flour at him. "Don't tell me. I like the mystery." He laughed, real and warm, and it transformed his whole severe face, and the warmth under her ribs chose that exact moment to bloom so bright it stole her breath. It had been happening since the night of the bread. When he was near, her whole body leaned toward him like a plant toward light. When he left for water, she felt his absence like a thread pulled too tight. She had no word for it. It frightened her almost as much as it thrilled her. It was the 4th day that Lord Crale came. Nell heard the boots first, heavy, marching in step, and her stomach dropped before the door opened. Crale swept in like he owned it, which in Frostmere he did, soft-bodied, fur-trimmed, rings on every finger, 4 armed men at his back.
"Little Nell of Crook Lane,"
Crale purred.
"Baking again? However did you manage flour in times as lean as these?"
Then his clever eyes landed on Ronan, sharpened.
"And who is this? I know every face in Frostmere. I don't know this one."
He looked Ronan up and down.
"A stranger, sheltering with a pretty girl who somehow has flour. You'll forgive me if I find that interesting."
"A traveler," Ronan said, perfectly mild. Somehow the most dangerous thing Nell had ever heard.
"Working off a meal. I'll be gone before I trouble you." "See that you are."
But Crale turned back to Nell, casual and cruel.
"Your rent's due at winter's end. I've reassessed it. Doubled."
His eyes crawled over her.
"If you can't pay, well, a girl like you, I'm sure I could find a use for you."
Nell's blood went cold. But before she could speak, Ronan simply stepped between them, looked down at Lord Crale with those gold eyes, and said, very quietly, "You'll want to be careful, my lord, about the uses you imagine for things that aren't yours." The room went silent, and Crale, who had 4 armed men and feared nothing in Frostmere, took a step back. His face went pale, then red. Some animal part of him had looked into the ragged stranger's eyes and recognized something it was afraid of. "Remember this man's face," Ronan said. "I have a feeling you'll be seeing it again." Crale gathered his wounded pride and swept out.
"Winter's end, Nell. The rent or the shop. As for you, traveler,"
poison in his voice now,
"Frostmere is not kind to men who don't know their place. Be gone by morning. For your health."
The door banged. Nell rounded on Ronan. "Are you mad? That was Lord Crale. He can have you killed. Why would you? You're a beggar. You've got nothing." "Nell?" He caught her hands. The warmth flared, steadying, and the panic died in her throat.
"I will not let that man touch you, or this shop. Not while I draw breath."
"You can't promise that. You're one man, a poor one, against a lord." Ronan looked at her a long moment. Then, with the ghost of that dangerous smile,
"You'd be surprised," he said, "what one poor man can do."
That night she woke to the door again, and this time she saw 3 more figures follow him into the snow. Not townsfolk. Hard-faced, silent, moving like soldiers, keeping to the shadows at the ragged stranger's back. Guarding him, as if he were someone worth guarding. "Who are you, Ronan?" Nell breathed. She was so close to the answer, and she had no idea. Episode 4. She almost asked him the next morning, About the men, the gold eyes, the way a lord had backed down from a beggar. Then he made her laugh over the dough, and the moment slipped past, and Nell realized, with a lurch of terror, that she didn't want him to be a stranger with secrets. She wanted him to be exactly what he was in this small, warm room, which meant she was in a great deal of trouble. It came out that evening, by the fire. "You've got a look," Nell said, "like a man carrying something too heavy to set down." Ronan stared into the fire a long time. "Can I ask you something? The stranger who fed you as a child, the one you gave your bread for. Tell me about it." Nell went quiet. It wasn't a story she told, but the fire was warm and the snow was falling. "I was 9, she said. "My mother died of fever. My father fell apart, took to drink, lost everything. We ended up on the road, and one winter, in a town I don't even remember, he went into a tavern to ask about work and told me to wait outside. And he never came out. I don't know if he meant to leave me, or if the drink took him, or the cold. I never found out." Her voice went soft. "I was 9 years old, sitting in a doorway in a strange town in the dead of winter. And I sat there 2 days. Nobody stopped. Rich, poor, they all walked past a starving child like I was part of the wall. By the second night, I'd stopped crying. I understood I was going to die there, and it wasn't going to matter to a single soul in the world." Ronan had gone very still. "And then a stranger stopped," Nell said. "An old woman. Poor herself. Her cloak was thin as mine. She could have walked past. Everyone with more had walked past. But she knelt down in the snow and took the last heel of bread from her own bag and pressed it into my hands. And she said, 'You never know whose life a loaf might save.' Then she wrapped her own scarf round my neck, told me where the poorhouse was, and left. I never learned her name. I never saw her again. But I decided, sitting there with her bread in my hands, if I lived, I'd be the person who stops. Always, however little I had. Because she taught me the size of the kindness doesn't matter. It's that somebody sees you, when you'd stopped believing anybody ever would." The fire crackled, and when Nell looked up, the ragged, secretive, impossible man across from her had tears standing in his gold eyes. "You gave me your last piece of bread," he said, wrecked. "You have known, your whole life, exactly what it is to be the one in the doorway, and you gave it away anyway. To a stranger you owed nothing." He looked at her like she was the answer to a question he'd spent his whole life asking. "Do you have any idea how rare you are? It's just bread, Ronan." "It was never just bread." And he reached across the space between them and cupped her face in one scarred hand, and the warmth flared so bright and bottomless she gasped. His forehead came to rest against hers. She could feel that second heartbeat, hammering, matched exactly to her own. "I have to tell you something," Ronan breathed, "about who I am. No, I haven't been honest with you about..." A fist pounded on the door. "Open in the name of Lord Crale! We know you're harboring the stranger! Open, or we break it down!" Ronan was on his feet in an instant, and every trace of the warm man was gone. In his place, something cold and coiled and dangerous, gold eyes blazing. How? He said, low and lethal. Did they find out I was still here? The door shuddered under a heavy blow.
Ronan, run, whoever you are, whatever you're hiding!
He looked at her frightened face, at the little warm shop, at the girl who'd given him her last piece of bread. And something in his gold eyes settled into a terrible, final resolve. No, he said quietly. I'm done running. It's time this town met the truth. The door burst open. Quick pause. If you're loving Nell and Ronan's story so far, do me a little favor and let me know you're here. Drop a comment and tell me where in the world you're listening from. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and I read every single one. And while you're down there, would you have opened that door to a freezing stranger? Or locked it tight like the rest of Frostmere? Let me know. If you're enjoying this, take a second to tap like and subscribe. It truly helps me keep these full stories coming. Now, back to that door, and the truth that's about to walk through it. Episode 5. 6 of Crale's men crowded the little shop. Crale himself stepped over the threshold, smiling.
There he is, the traveler who threatens lords, who slinks round my granaries at night.
His men seized Ronan by the arms. Ronan didn't fight them. He simply watched Crale with those gold eyes, and that stillness of his should have warned the steward. It didn't.
A grain thief. A spy, most likely. I could kill you where you stand and no one would ever ask.
Leave him alone! Nell threw herself forward. He hasn't stolen anything!
And you,
Crale said, rounding on her, silk soft and vicious.
Harboring a spy. That's sedition, little Nell. A hanging offense, out here where I am the only law.
His eyes glittered.
But I'm reasonable. The shop's mine. Forfeit. You'll keep house in my hall and be grateful. And your spy hangs at dawn, as a warning.
No, Nell whispered, and through all of it, Ronan said nothing. Until now. And when he spoke, it was not the voice of a beggar. It was low and cold, and it rang with an authority that made every man in the room go quiet.
You've stolen a great deal, Crale. Grain, gold, the lives in this town. I've counted the graves in your churchyard, and I know how many didn't have to be there. But here's what I find most remarkable. You stole from the crown itself, and you were so certain no one was watching that you did it in the open. You let a whole town believe their king forgot them, so they'd never think to ask why his relief kept vanishing behind your doors.
Crale's smile flickered.
How do you... The king's grain,
Ronan went on,
reached this town. Every sack. I've counted the seals on the ones rotting in your storehouse. It arrived, and then it went into your granaries and never came out, and children starved 2 streets from your warm hall.
His gold eyes burned.
Tell me, did you ever once imagine what would happen to you if the king found out? The king,
Crale spat, fear cracking under it now,
is 1,000 miles away and has never set foot in this God's-forsaken corner of the map and never will. So whatever you think you've seen, spy, it dies with you at dawn.
And Ronan smiled. Not a warm smile. The smile of a wolf who's let the rabbit run exactly as far as it pleased him to let it run. You keep saying the king is far away, but the king doesn't know. He leaned forward, as far as the men holding him allowed. Tell me, Crale, what will you do when I tell you he already has? For a moment, no one moved, and Nell watched Lord Crale's face drain of every drop of color. Watched him truly look at the ragged stranger for the first time. The way he stood, even in chains, like rooms arranged themselves around him. The clean, certain voice, those gold eyes. Gold, the mark of the royal blood, the ruling line of Veyra. No, Crale breathed. No, you can't be. Take your hands off me, Ronan said. And it was a command, spoken in a voice that had commanded armies. And to Nell's astonishment, Crale's own men obeyed, dropping to their knees before they decided to move. But a cornered, wicked man does one last desperate thing. Crale snatched a sword from a kneeling guard and lunged, not at Ronan, at Nell.
If I hang, she dies first.
The world slowed, and Nell, watching the blade come, had one clear thought. So this is how it ends. In the cold. Just like it was always going to. But she'd forgotten what stands between a monster and the thing it means to hurt. When that thing is the fated mate of the Alpha King of Veyra. Ronan moved, faster than a man. Bone and shadow, the beggar's cloak tearing away, and where a chained man had stood, an enormous black wolf now filled the shop, eyes of burning gold. And it hit Lord Crale like the wrath of God and bore him screaming to the floor, a handspan from where Nell stood. The sword clattered away. Crale did not get up. Nell pressed against the wall and stared at the great black wolf. The wolf that 1 breath ago had been the ragged gentleman who slept on her floor and slept her flower and made her laugh. It turned its huge head. Its gold eyes found hers. And she knew them. Of course she knew them. She'd known them since the first night. Slowly, bone and shadow folding inward, the man knelt in the wreckage, human again, watching her with an expression she'd never seen on him before. Fear. He was afraid of what she'd say. Hard-faced men in fine armor poured into Crook Lane, dropping to one knee at the sight of him.
Your Majesty, thank the gods. When you didn't return, we feared the worst.
Your Majesty. Nell's whole world went very quiet. No, Ronan said softly, rising, one hand outstretched. The hand she'd pressed her last piece of bread into.
Let me explain.
You're the king, Nell said. It wasn't a question. This whole time, I gave you my bread. I felt sorry for you. You let me believe you were nothing. Her voice cracked. You lied to me. And she turned and fled up the ladder to her loft, and left the Alpha King of Veyra standing in the wreckage of her shop, with his hand still outstretched, and his whole guarded heart in his eyes. Episode 6. By dawn, the whole town knew. The Alpha King had come to Frostmere in disguise, found his own steward, the thief, thrown open the storehouses. There was bread in every home and fire in every hearth, and the town that had been dying was, impossibly, saved. They cheered his name in the square, and Nell sat in her loft and felt, tangled together, relief and astonishment and, sharp and stubborn and aching, hurt. Because for 4 days she'd fed a man and laughed with a man and started, God's help her, to love a man. And he had never once been real.
"You'll catch your death up here,"
said a voice. She looked down. Ronan stood at the foot of the ladder. Gone was the beggar's cloak. In its place, fine dark clothes edged in gold. But his face was the same, and he looked absurdly, painfully out of place in her sad little shop.
"May I come up?"
He climbed anyway, and folded himself under her low roof. The Alpha King of Veyra, knees nearly to his chin, and for a moment neither spoke.
"I owe you the truth,"
he said.
"I came to Frostmere because I send grain to the border towns every winter, and every winter the reports said all was well. But travelers brought other stories. Starving towns, graves, a steward growing rich. Someone was lying to me,
And I've learned you can't send a king to find the truth. A king is shown only what men wish him to see. So I took off my crown and put on a beggar's cloak and walked into my own kingdom to see it with my own eyes." "Why the beggar?" Nell said. "Why pretend to be starving?" "Because you learn everything about a place from how it treats the man with nothing to give it. A town kind to a rich traveler is being kind to his coin. A town kind to a freezing beggar has something left in its heart." Every door in Frostmere turned me away, and I understood how badly the town had been broken. And then I knocked on one more door, and a girl with an empty cupboard and 1 loaf gave me all of it and told me to come in out of the cold. He looked up at her, gold eyes bare. "Do you know what it is to be a king? Every soul I've ever met wanted something. My crown, my gold, my hand. Every noble family throws their daughters at me, and not one of those girls has ever looked at me and seen a man. I've been the most powerful person in the kingdom and the loneliest my whole life. And then a starving girl gave me her last piece of bread when she thought I was no one, when there was nothing I could ever give her back. You're the first person in my whole life who was kind to me for nothing. That's why I didn't tell you. Because the moment you knew I was the king, I'd never know again whether your kindness was real or bought. And then it stopped being a test at all. Then it was just you. And every day I meant to tell you. And every day I was afraid I'd lose the one place I got to be a man. I was going to tell you tonight. Crale's men just got there first." Nell's throat was tight. The warmth under my ribs. The second heartbeat. "That's not just me, is it?" "No," Ronan said softly. "Among my kind, there's a bond. The rarest thing we have. The moon chooses one soul meant for yours, and when you find them, you know. A pull, a warmth, a second heartbeat that becomes your own. And it does not happen to humans, Nell. It never has in all our histories. It's not supposed to be possible." And then a human girl pressed bread into my hand. Our fingers touched, and 30 years of loneliness went quiet. You are my mate. You a baker's daughter at the cold edge of the map. The moon reached across everything that's supposed to be impossible, and it chose you. That can't be right, Nell whispered. I'm nobody. You're supposed to marry a princess, someone who knows which fork to use. I've spent my whole life being told what a king is supposed to do. He took her hand, and the warmth bloomed bright and right. Not one of those things ever made me anything but alone. I don't want a princess, Nell. I want the woman who gave a freezing stranger her last piece of bread and asked for nothing. I want you, flower and all. I don't know how to be a queen, Ronan, she breathed, frightened and small and honest. I'd embarrass you. A crown doesn't need a woman who knows which fork to use. It needs a woman who counts the graves in the churchyard, who notices which children go hungry, who'd give away her last crust. It needs you, almost as much as I do. Stay, not as a subject, as mine. And let me be yours, just the man who cannot get warm without you. And Nell, orphan, baker's daughter, the girl who'd learned in a doorway that the size of a kindness doesn't matter, only that somebody stops, felt the last of her fear go quiet under the warmth of his hand. Yes, she said. You're still folded up under my roof like a heron in a hat box, she added, breathless, as his whole face broke open with joy. Least kingly thing I've ever... He kissed her, and the bond swung wide open, warm and golden and singing. 30 years of his loneliness and 12 of hers, dissolving into one bright, unbearable thing. He tasted like snow and something wild, and the little loft that had been so cold for so long filled with a warmth that had nothing to do with the fire. What happened after, the moon kept to herself. Some things, even a king doesn't tell. It should have been the end of the story, but there is always one who cannot bear to see a good thing win. Because Lord Crale, chained in the town gale, had wealth still hidden and a cousin among the king's own guard, and he had realized, at last, that the surest way to destroy a king is to take the one thing he cannot live without. Episode 7. They took her 3 nights later. Ronan had ridden to the next town at dawn. There were other border villages, other stewards. He'd made her promise to keep 3 of his guard close, but one of those 3 was Crale's cousin, and in the dark before Ronan was due back, that guard opened the door to men who shouldn't have been there, and a cloth soaked in something sweet came down over Nell's face. She woke bound, in the abandoned mill on the frozen river. Crale stood before her, free, a fresh bruise on his face, a wild, ruined look in his clever eyes. His last loyal few around him. Nothing left to lose. "The king's little baker," he said, thin and strange. "I've had time to think, in that cell, about why the Alpha King shed his crown and stayed 4 days in a hovel. A man like that doesn't linger for bread." His eyes glittered. And then his soldiers talked, of a bond, of a Luna, of the human girl the Alpha King would burn the world for. So I don't need to fight the king. I just need you. "He'll find you," Nell said, shaking but steady. There won't be a hole deep enough.
I'm counting on him finding me.
Crale drew a long, cruel knife, and her blood ran cold.
He'll come alone. The bond will drive him mad, and I'll have a blade at your throat, and the only thing that can make the Alpha King of Veyra kneel.
And far away, on the frozen road, the Alpha King of Veyra fell off his horse. It hit him like a blade between the ribs. The bond that had been warm and whole since the night of the bread suddenly screaming. Fear that wasn't his. Cold that wasn't his.
Nell!
Ronan gasped, already back on his horse, gold eyes blazing. The man gone and something older surfacing behind them.
Something's taken her. Ride, all of you. Ride for Frostmere and don't stop.
His voice cracked with a fury that made his own soldiers flinch.
I will tear this kingdom apart, stone by stone, before I let anyone put their hands on what is mine.
In the mill, Nell felt the warmth flare, surge, no longer failing but coming, brighter with every mile. You feel that, don't you? She said to Crale, smiling now through her fear. You wanted the king to come. He's coming. But you've never understood the thing you can't take. You can't take a bond. Put a knife to my throat, it won't matter. He doesn't love a thing he owns. He loves me. And love doesn't kneel to men like you. It comes for them.
Shut up,
Crale hissed, but his knife hand was trembling. The mill door exploded off its hinges, and the Alpha King of Veyra came through it like the end of the world. Gold eyes blazing, 30 years of loneliness, and the first love he'd ever known, all burning behind them, and Crale's desperate men scattered like leaves.
Ronan!
Nell screamed.
The knife!
Crale hauled her against him, blade to her throat, back to the wall.
Stay back, or I'll...
Ronan stopped. 3 feet away. Close enough to kill, not close enough to save. Exactly the trap Crale had built. And Nell saw the terrible math settle over his face.
Let her go,
Ronan said, low and shaking with rage barely leashed.
Let her go, and you walk out breathing. It's the only offer you'll get, and it expires the instant you draw 1 drop of her blood.
Your crown, Crale spat, half laughing, half sobbing.
I don't want it. I want you to feel it.
And Nell, pinned against a madman with a blade at her throat, met Ronan's eyes across the mill. Ronan, she said quietly, it's all right. He went white.
No.
I've been in the doorway before. I know what it is to think it's the end. So listen. Her eyes held his, fierce and unafraid. The bond goes both ways. You feel me. I feel you. So feel this. I'm not afraid. I'd rather give my last piece of bread to a stranger and die for it than live one day the way he lives. I chose you. In the doorway, in the dark, before I knew you were anyone. I'd choose you again. So don't you dare make his choice for him. Trust me. And she poured it down the golden thread between them. All her steadiness, all her certainty, all her love, straight into him. And she saw the moment it reached him. Saw his eyes clear, saw the panic leave, replaced by something colder and surer and far more dangerous.
Because a mad king makes mistakes. But a king whose mate has just filled him with her own calm? A king like that does not.
You're right, Ronan said softly. To Nell. Only to Nell.
I've been afraid this whole time. But you were never afraid at all.
His gold eyes shifted, just slightly, to the shadows by the broken door, where a hard-faced captain had crept silent and unseen while every eye was on the king.
Which means neither am I.
Nell. It happened in a heartbeat. The captain's thrown blade took Crale's knife hand at the wrist. The knife dropped, and in the half-second it took him to scream, Ronan crossed the impossible distance faster than a wolf, tore Nell out of his grip, and put his own body between her and every danger in the world. Crale lunged for the fallen knife, and did not reach it. Nell looked away before the end. Some things, even now, she didn't need to watch. When it was done, the Alpha King of Veyra gathered the trembling baker's daughter into his arms and held her like the only warmth left in a frozen world.
You,
he breathed into her hair, half a laugh and half a sob,
are the bravest, most impossible woman who has ever lived. And if you ever frighten me like that again...
You came, Nell said into his chest. I knew you'd come.
I will always come,
Ronan said fiercely, drawing back to take her face in his hands.
To the end of the world. You gave a freezing stranger your last piece of bread. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you are never cold or hungry or afraid ever again. That's the only true thing in this whole story.
You're shaking, Nell whispered.
Yes, said the king. That tends to happen when you almost lose the only thing you've ever loved.
He pressed his forehead to hers, the bond blazing whole and bright and theirs.
Take me home now. Let me marry you before anything else in this cursed kingdom can go wrong.
Episode 8. They were married at winter's end, in Frostmere, in the square where a king had once been turned away from every door. Nell had feared a queen's wedding would be a cold, gilded thing in some marble hall, full of nobles who'd sneer at a baker's daughter. But Ronan wouldn't hear of it.
You'll be crowned in the capital in time, with all the pomp the kingdom can muster. But I will marry you where I found you, in front of the people who watched you give away your last crust. Let the nobles come to Frostmere for once. Let them see what a real Luna looks like.
And so they came. The whole town, and half the kingdom besides. Lords and ladies shoulder to shoulder with the poor of Frostmere, in the square where the granaries stood open and would never be locked again. And Nell walked to the King of Veyra through a town that had been dying and was now impossibly alive. You know, she murmured, as he took her hands beneath the winter sky, there's still time to run. Marry a princess who knows which fork to use?
I've told you,
Ronan said, gold eyes shining.
Princesses are nothing but trouble. I'll take the baker. Flour and all. Every day of my life.
And under the cold, clear sky, the Alpha King of Veyra bound himself to a baker's daughter, and the bond swung wide open in front of the whole kingdom, warm and golden and singing, and there was not a dry eye in the square. And Nell of Crook Lane, orphan, bread giver, the card no one had ever stopped for, became the most beloved queen the Kingdom of Veyra would ever know. What happened after, behind the doors of their chambers that night? Well, the moon keeps her secrets, and so does a king. 1 year later, there was bread in every home in Veyra. It was the first thing the new Luna had asked for. Not gowns, not jewels, but that the king's grain reach every town it was meant for, and that no steward ever again grow fat while a child went hungry. They called it the Luna's Law. In the hard heart of every winter, the crown's relief would come, with the queen's own seal, so no soul at the cold edge of the map would ever again believe they'd been forgotten. Nell rode out herself some winters, a queen now, with the same fierce eyes that counted the graves and noticed the hungry. And everywhere she went, she brought bread, made with her own hands, given to the poorest first. You never know whose life a loaf might save. She never did find the old woman from the doorway. She'd looked, quietly, for years. But some kindnesses are given by people who never learn what they set in motion. So Nell simply became the old woman instead. She became the one who stops for a whole kingdom. The little shop on Crook Lane still stood. She wouldn't let them tear it down, and on certain days she still slipped away from the palace to bake in her father's old oven, the King of Veyra failing cheerfully at the kneading beside her. "You're cold," Ronan said one such evening, wrapping his arms around her as the snow came down soft outside the mended window. "I'm not." "You are. I can feel it. I'll always be able to feel it." His hand spread warm over the gentle, unmistakable curve beneath her flour-dusted apron. "The healer says it's a boy." "Goddess help us all," Nell said, leaning back into him. "If he's anything like his father, he'll wander off into the kingdom in a beggar's cloak the first chance he gets and give some poor girl the fright of her life." She felt him laugh, low and real, against her back. "And if he's anything like his mother," Ronan murmured, "he'll give away his last piece of bread to a freezing stranger and change everything, and never once understand that he did. I can't think of a better king for Veyra than that." And Nell, who had learned in a doorway in the cold that the size of a kindness doesn't matter, only that somebody stops, stood in the warm little shop where a freezing stranger had once eaten her last piece of bread, wrapped in the arms of the king she'd never known she was feeding, and let herself be happy. Some love is born of thrones. Some is born of blood. Hers had been born of a single loaf of bread, given freely on the coldest night of the year, to a stranger she thought was no one at all. And it had been the warmest thing of all. The end. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you loved Nell and Ronan's story as much as I loved telling it. Tell me, would you have given the freezing stranger your last piece of bread? Or locked the door like the rest of the town? And when did you first guess who he really was? The gold eyes? The men in the snow? Or the moment he made a lord back down? Let me know in the comments. I read every single one, and they mean the world to me. And if you'd like more, until next time, much love from Feral Romance Library.